You're listening to the RetireCoast podcast, where money, business, and lifestyle come together. Join us each week as we explore smarter financial planning, starting and growing businesses, and building the life you want at every stage, from millennials and Gen X to today's retirees.
Thank you for returning to RetireCoast. Our topic today is going to be Gen X Guide to Retirement, the ultimate guide, as we put it in our RetireCoast.com article. What I've attempted to do here is to explain all of the aspects of retirement for those of you who are in the Generation X. And actually, it works for anyone as well, for people who are already retired or even younger generations. But it's specifically for the age group that is getting prepared now. You've got roughly 20 years, maybe a little less than that, to prepare for retirement. And we're going to cover a number of topics in here. Social Security and Medicare, financial strategies, HSAs, second act careers, estate planning, and many more things. The way I look at it for planning for retirement is that there isn't too much information that you can gain. You get it from different sources. You'll be able to put together a plan for your own retirement so that you're in control of your own destiny. You can look forward to retirement. It's going to be interesting and hopefully enjoyable, as a lot of people who are retired have found it to be. Now, we're going to explain all of these things with a dialogue. There could be two individuals going back and forth discussing these things. There'll be some thought-provoking ideas brought in here, but please follow up at RetireCoast.com because our article on this topic is extensive. It has graphs and podcasts in it and has all kinds of other tools that you can use, and then references to our extensive tool collection that are free for you. Also, if you choose to become a member of RetireCoast, you can have access to some more extensive planning and decision-making products. Your choice, of course. But please listen to our dialogue, and then at the end, go to RetireCoast.com and take a look at our article to dig deeper. Thank you for listening.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking at a group of people who are usually pretty happy being left alone.
Yeah, they really prefer that.
Right. I mean, they raised themselves on hose water and mixtapes. They survived the dot-com bubble and the Great Recession, and they generally just prefer to fly under the radar.
But the radar has definitely found them now.
It sure has. We are talking about Generation X, and specifically, we are looking at a new update to the RetireCoast Ultimate Gen X Retirement Guide. This is the updated February 2026 edition.
It is.
And the headline isn't exactly a warm hug.
No, it is not.
It says that for anyone born between 1965 and 1980, the concept of someday is gone. You are now officially in the red zone.
The red zone. It's a football analogy, but it's actually perfect for financial planning.
How so?
Well, when you're on the 20-yard line, the field shrinks. You don't have room for long passes or Hail Marys anymore. You have to execute.
Right.
The clock is ticking, the defense is tightening up, and you just need to punch it in.
Because you can't afford a sack at this point.
Exactly. If you're a millennial, you have 30 years. If the market crashes, you wait. You have time to recover from a bad play.
You can just ride it out.
Right. But if you're Gen X and you're, say, 54 years old in 2026, you have maybe 10 or 15 years left until you want to stop working.
That is not a lot of time.
It's really not. A major mistake now isn't just a learning experience. It's a permanent reduction in your standard of living for the rest of your life.
That's terrifying. Thanks for starting us off with a panic attack today.
Just delivering the facts from the guide.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But the guide calls this the reality check, right? It paints Gen X as being in this unique financial vice grip. They say it's worse than the boomers had it and harder than the millennials. Why is this specific demographic so squeezed right now?
It's a convergence of three distinct pressures. First, the death of the pension.
Ah, the pension.
Yeah. Gen X is effectively the guinea pig generation for the 401k experiment.
That's a great way to put it.
They didn't get the defined benefit plans their parents had, where you just show up for 30 years and get a check for life. They had to save it themselves, often without much guidance at the beginning of their careers.
And often during some pretty volatile market cycles, too.
Correct. Second, They are the sandwich generation on steroids.
Because they're caught in the middle.
Exactly. They are supporting adult children who grew up with smartphones and social media and are now facing a really tough housing market and won't leave home. And simultaneously, they are caring for aging baby boomer parents who are living longer than ever.
Right. The latchkey kids are now helicopter parents.
It's a massive shift in family dynamics. And third, they've lived through multiple once-in-a-lifetime economic crashes during their prime earning years.
2008, the pandemic, all of it.
Yeah, and that stunted the compounding effect of their early savings.
So they have the debt, they have the dependence, and they don't have the safety net. It really feels like the goalposts just keep moving on them.
They do. But, and this is why we are doing this deep dive today, the guide argues that Gen X also has specific advantages that no other generation has right now.
Okay, I like advantages. What are they?
They are entering their absolute peak earning years.
The highest salary years?
The highest. And that means they have the capacity to sprint. The mission of this deep dive isn't to wallow in the anxiety. The guide is titled Plan Smarter, Not Panic Harder.
Plan smarter, not panic harder. I love that.
We need to move from asking, am I going to be okay, to saying, here's the exact math to make sure I'm okay.
Okay, so let's stop admiring the problem and start fixing it. If you're listening to this and your pulse just spiked, what is the first move? We have to look at the numbers, don't we?
We do, and I warn you, the baseline numbers are scary. The guide cites studies showing that the median Gen X retirement savings right now, in 2026, are hovering somewhere between $40,000 and $65,000.
Whoa! Wait a second, 40,000 to 65,000?
Yeah.
For a generation that's potentially turning 60 in a few years, that's not a retirement fund. That's a new Toyota Camry.
It is harsh. It is a massive shortfall. If you look at the benchmarks provided in the source material, they suggest a totally different trajectory.
What are the actual benchmarks? The rules of thumb?
By age 50, the rule of thumb is that you should have roughly 5 times your annual income saved.
Let's do the math on that out loud. If I'm making $100,000 a year, which is a solid salary, I should have $500,000 sitting in my accounts right now.
Yes, and the ramp gets steeper. By age 55, the target is 7 times your annual income.
Wow.
And by age 60, it's 10 times. So if you are 55 making $100,000 and you have $60,000 in the bank, you are statistically in trouble.
Okay, I can practically hear you listeners right now. You are turning off the audio because you feel completely paralyzed.
It is a paralyzing number to hear.
Right. If you are sitting there with $50,000 and you're 52 years old, hearing that you need $700,000 doesn't help. It just makes you want to give up. Is it actually possible to catch up from that far behind?
It is, but it requires a radical shift in mindset. You have to switch from spending mode to accumulating mode immediately. The guide calls these the catch-up superpowers.
Superpowers. I like the sound of that. What are they?
The first one is embedded in the tax code itself. It's the catch-up contribution.
How does that work?
Most people know there's a limit to what you can stuff into a 401k or a 403b. But the day you turn 50, the IRS effectively opens a VIP lane for you. They lift the cap.
It's like a birthday present from the IRS.
A very nerdy, very profitable birthday present. The guide references the baseline figures. And remember, these do adjust for inflation, but essentially you can contribute an extra $7,500 or more on top of the standard limit.
So what does that bring the total to?
That brings your total tax advantage space to over $30,000 a year.
Okay, I hear that and I immediately think, great, I can save more money than I don't have. If I'm already struggling to save the regular amount, how does raising the limit actually help me?
That is the most common objection. But you have to look at the tax efficiency argument laid out in the guide.
Yeah.
Let's say you are in the 32% tax bracket. You're a high earner. You're in your 50s.
Right.
Every dollar you put into that 401k comes off the top of your taxable income. So that extra $7,500, it doesn't actually cost you $7,500 out of your pocket.
Because of the tax savings.
Exactly. Because you aren't paying that 32% tax on it, the take-home cost to your paycheck might be closer to $5,000. You are buying $7,500 of future wealth for $5,000 of current lifestyle.
That's the arbitrage right there. You're using the high tax bracket against the IRS.
Precisely. You are shielding money at 32% today, so you can pull it out in retirement when you might be in a 12% or 22% bracket.
Yeah.
It's an immediate return on investment before the market even moves.
And if you are married,
Double it.
just double the whole thing.
Double it. If both spouses are over 50 and working, you can shovel upwards of $60,000 or $70,000 a year into pre-tax accounts.
That is massive.
It is. You do that for 7 years, With some decent market growth, you have literally closed a $500,000 gap.
That is actually doable. It's aggressive, obviously, but it's just math.
It is just math,
Yeah.
but you have to prioritize it over absolutely everything else, over the new car, over the vacation, or the kitchen remodel.
Now, speaking of accounts, the guide makes a really big deal about the specific types of accounts. We always hear about traditional versus Roth. And usually the advice is that Roth is better because it's tax-free. But the guide says Gen X needs both. Why is that?
This is all about control. We don't know what tax rates will be in 2035 or 2040. The national debt is high, taxes might go up. The expert strategy here is tax diversification.
Like asset diversification, but for the IRS.
Exactly. Imagine you are retired. You need $10,000 for a new roof. If all your money is in a traditional IRA, pulling out that $10,000 counts as taxable income.
Right, because you haven't paid taxes on it yet.
Correct. And that withdrawal might bump you into a higher tax bracket. It might make more of your Social Security taxable. It might even increase your Medicare premiums.
Oh, wow. That's a domino effect I didn't even think about.
But if you have a Roth bucket, you can pull that $10,000 out and the IRS doesn't even see it. It keeps your official income low. Having both buckets gives you the ability to engineer your tax bill every single year in retirement.
That is incredibly smart. Now, before we leave the savings section entirely, we have to talk about the gig economy. A lot of Gen Xers are consultants, freelancers, or they've started their own small businesses. They don't have a corporate HR department matching their 401k. Are they just screwed?
Paradoxically, they might be in a much better position. The guide highlights the solo 401k and the SEP IRA. These are high horsepower vehicles.
High horsepower how?
With a solo 401k, if you are self-employed, you play two roles. You are the employee and you are the employer.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. You can contribute as the employee up to the normal limit. And you can contribute as the employer up to 20 or 25% of your business profits.
So the limits are way higher than a standard corporate worker gets.
Much, much higher. Depending on your income, you could potentially stash away $60,000, $70,000, even more, all tax deferred. If you are a high-earning freelancer in your 50s, this is the single best way to play catch-up.
Okay, so absolutely no excuses for the self-employed. Let's pivot to something the guide calls a hidden gem. I love a good secret weapon. We are talking about health savings accounts, or HSAs.
This is one of my favorite topics because so many people use them wrong.
Well, I have one. I use it to buy contact solution and pay for my kids' braces. Are you telling me I'm doing it wrong?
I wouldn't say wrong, but you are definitely missing the deep dive level strategy. Most people treat the HSA as a pass-through spending account. Put money in, spend money out. The guide argues you should treat it as a stealth IRA.
A stealth IRA. Break that down for me.
Okay, think about the tax advantages we just discussed. A 401k gives you a tax break going in, but taxes you coming out.
Right.
A Roth taxes you going in, but is free coming out. The HSA. It is the only vehicle in the American tax code that has the triple tax advantage.
Triple threat.
Exactly.
Oh.
1, you get a tax deduction when you put the money in. 2, it grows tax-free. 3, if you use it for medical expenses, it comes out tax-free.
So if I use it for health care, the IRS never touches a single dime of that growth.
Never. And here's a Gen X hack. If you can afford it, and I know this is a big if, you should pay for your current medical expenses, the braces, and the contacts out of your regular bank account. Leave the money in the HSA.
Wait, don't spend it.
Don't touch it. Most HSAs allow you to invest that balance in mutual funds, just like a 401k. So if you max that out every year in your 50s and let it ride the stock market, by the time you were 65, you could have a 6-figure account that is completely tax-free for healthcare.
And considering that healthcare is projected to be the single biggest expense for retirees, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's huge.
It's your own personal health insurance endowment. And the guide adds one more safety valve because people constantly worry about this. They say, what if I don't get sick? What if I have this huge pile of money trapped in a health account?
Right. Can I buy a boat with it?
Actually, yes.
Really?
Yes. Once you turn 65, the penalty for non-medical withdrawals completely disappears. You can take that money out for anything. A boat, groceries, a trip to Italy, you just pay regular income tax on it, exactly like a traditional IRA.
So worst case scenario, it turns into a traditional IRA. Best case scenario, it's triple tax-free magic.
Exactly. It is the most versatile account you can possibly own.
That is a serious hack. Okay, let's talk about what we are investing in. Because the timeline is shorter now. We aren't 25 anymore. We can't just throw money into crypto and pray. The guide talks about a balancing act.
This brings us back to the red zone concept. You need growth, because you might live to be 95. You have to beat inflation. But you also need stability, because if the market crashes 2 years before you retire, you don't have time to recover.
So it's the classic stocks versus bonds debate.
That's the foundation, yes.
Yeah.
But the guide also leans heavily into real estate for Gen X. And not just your primary residence. It suggests looking at rental properties or REITs, which are real estate investment trusts.
Why real estate specifically for this generation?
Inflation. Gen X is terrified of inflation eating their savings. Real estate is a natural hedge. When inflation goes up, rents usually go up.
Which provides passive income.
Exactly. It provides a rising income stream that can help offset the rising cost of living.
And then there's the A word, annuities. I feel like annuities get a really bad rap sometimes, or people just find them incredibly confusing.
Yeah. They are confusing. And frankly, many are expensive products you should avoid. But the guide discusses a specific type of annuity strategy effectively as a personal pension.
Creating the pension you didn't get from your job.
Exactly. Longevity risk is a very real thing. What if you live to 100? Your 401k might run dry at 85. An annuity is basically insurance against living too long. You hand over a lump sum, and they guarantee you a monthly check until the day you die.
Just like a traditional pension.
Right. For a generation without those safety nets, buying a floor of guaranteed income can provide a massive amount of psychological peace of mind.
Okay, let's move to the timeline. This is section 3 in our outline, and it really stressed me out, but in a good way. It's called the critical timeline. We have 4 key dates to look at, and the expert analysis here is that impatience costs money.
That is the headline. Timing is everything. Let's walk through the chronology because Gen X is hitting these milestones right now.
First stop, age 62. The guide calls this the trap.
It is a massive trap. 62 is the earliest age you can claim Social Security. And it is so tempting. You see that money sitting there, you're tired of working, you just think, I'll take it.
Why is it a trap?
2 big reasons. First, the permanent haircut. If you claim at 62, your monthly benefit is permanently reduced by roughly 25 to 30% compared to your full retirement age.
And that reduction never goes away.
Never. You are locking in a lower standard of living for the next 30 years.
Wow. And the second reason?
The income limit. This catches people off guard constantly. If you claim Social Security early at 62 and you continue to work,
which many people do, specifically to bridge the gap.
Right. But if you earn over the limit, which is around $22,320 in the guide's baseline figures, the government penalizes you.
How bad is the penalty?
For every $2 you earn over that limit, they withhold $1 of your benefits.
Wait, so let me get this straight. I take a 30% cut just to get the money early, and then if I work to make extra money, they take half the benefit back.
Exactly. It makes almost no mathematical sense to claim at 62 if you're still working. You are just spinning your wheels.
Okay, that is definitely a trap. Next milestone, age 65. Medicare.
This is the health milestone.
Yeah.
And the guide literally screams about this. Do not miss your window. You have a 7-month initial enrollment period around your 65th birthday.
What happens if I miss it? I mean, I just sign up later, right?
You can, but you will pay a penalty. And not a one-time fee. A lifetime penalty added to your premiums.
A lifetime penalty? That seems really aggressive.
It is. The system relies on everyone signing up on time. And here is the other major clarification the guide makes. Medicare is not free.
I think a lot of people just assume it is. They think, I pay taxes all my life, now I get free health care.
That is simply not true. Part A, which covers the hospital, is usually premium free. But Part B, which covers doctors and outpatient care, has a monthly premium. It's usually close to $175 or more per month per person. And Part D, for prescription drugs, is extra. Plus, you have deductibles and co-insurance. You have to budget for healthcare costs even in retirement. It is absolutely not a free ride.
Got it. Budget for the premiums. Okay, age 67.
The Gen X sweet spot. This is the full retirement age, or FRA, for anyone born in 1960 or later. This means you get 100% of your earned benefit. And crucially, that income penalty we talked about, it completely disappears.
So at 67, I can work, make $1 million a year, and still get my full Social Security check?
Correct. No penalties whatsoever for working.
And finally, age 70. The guide calls this the maximizer.
If you have longevity in your family, this is the golden ticket. For every year you wait past your full retirement age, the government gives you delayed retirement credits of roughly 8% per year.
An 8% guaranteed return. You can't get that in the stock market, risk-free.
You absolutely cannot. By waiting until 70, your monthly check could be roughly 76% higher than if you had claimed at 62.
76% higher. That's the difference between eating cat food and eating steak.
It is the difference between surviving and thriving. It's an inflation-adjusted annuity that you literally can't outlive. If you can bridge the gap to 70, you win the game.
Bridging the gap seems to be the overarching theme here, but to bridge that gap, we have to talk about the expenses that are dragging us down. We mentioned the sandwich generation earlier, but Section 4 of the outline really digs into the parent trap and the bank of mom and dad.
This is where the guide stops being a math textbook and starts being a family counseling session. And honestly, this is where retirement plans live or die.
It talks about the tough love necessity. The author actually shares a story about growing up with 4 siblings.
Yes. The expectation back then was very clear. At 18, you launch. You get a job, you go to school, you join the military, but you leave the house. Today, we see what the guide calls launchpad parents. Kids leave, they come back, they leave, they come back with a bunch of debt.
And Gen X parents are softies. We want to help our kids.
We do, but the guide calls this economic outpatient care, and it is lethal to your retirement. The data shows that supporting an adult child, paying their cell phone, car insurance, maybe part of their rent, can cost a parent between $4,000 and $10,000 a year.
That doesn't sound like a fortune until you compound it.
Exactly. $10,000 a year for a decade, invested at 7%, is a $250,000 hole in your retirement fund. That is the difference between retiring at 65 and retiring at 72.
So what do we do? Just kick them out on the street?
The guide suggests a pivot from supporting to scaffolding. You don't just cut them off cold turkey. You set a financial independence date.
Give me the script. What do you actually say to them?
You sit them down and say, I love you, but my retirement fund is currently short. Can I take a loan out for my retirement? But you have time to figure this out. By January 1st, the car insurance is in your name. By June 1st, you need to be on your own lease.
So you're modeling financial responsibility rather than just subsidizing their lifestyle.
Exactly. And the guide also suggests looking at alternatives to the expensive 4-year college path.
Trade schools.
Yes. Electricians, plumbers, HVAC. The guide notes these are high-pay careers, they are highly secure, and importantly, they are AI resistant. ChatGPT cannot fix a leaky pipe or install a heat pump.
That is a very good point. If you want job security in 2026, manual expertise is incredibly valuable. But then there's the other side of the sandwich. The aging parents. The boomers.
This is the uncomfortable lunch.
The uncomfortable lunch.
You have to sit down with your parents before the crisis hits, before the fall, before the dementia sets in. You need to ask the really hard questions. What does your long-term care policy cover? Where are the passwords? Do you have a trust?
Because if you wait until the ambulance is in the driveway,
you are making 6-figure financial decisions under extreme emotional duress. And often, Gen X children end up paying for care out of their own pockets simply because they didn't know how to access their parents' assets.
It's about protecting your own financial oxygen mask first.
Exactly. Or maybe considering co-living arrangements or getting siblings to pitch in. You have to have a shared family support plan.
Let's move to Section 5, Debt, Housing, and Lifestyle Management. The guide calls for a debt attack plan.
The priority is very clear here. Eliminate high-interest debt immediately. Credit cards, private student loans, these are wealth destroyers. If you are paying 20% interest on a credit card, there is no investment in the world that can beat that. Pay it off.
And the guide actually gives a warning here, too. Do not co-sign student loans for your children.
Absolutely do not. That is attaching an anchor to your own financial ship.
But then there is the mortgage debate. This is always a hot topic. Ideally, you want to be mortgage-free in retirement, right?
Ideally, yes. It lowers your fixed costs. If the market crashes, you don't have to worry about losing your home. However, the guide adds a very specific nuance for 2026.
The golden handcuffs of the 3% mortgage.
Right. If you are one of the lucky Gen Xers sitting on a 3% mortgage from back in 2020 or 2021, you have a mathematical dilemma. If you have extra cash, do you pay off that 3% debt? Or do you put it in a high-yield savings account paying 4.5% or invest it in the market for 7%?
Mathematically, you invest it. You make the spread.
Correct. But the guide warns against carrying debt just for the sake of it. If you are the type of person who sleeps better at night knowing you owe nothing to anyone, just pay off the house. The psychological dividend is tax-free.
What about downsizing? The kids are gone, hopefully. Do we really need the 4-bedroom house?
The guide suggests looking at your home equity as another retirement bucket. If you trade the big house for a condo, you might unlock $200,000 or $300,000 in equity. That alone can fully fund your health care for life. Or the guide suggests renting later in life.
Renting after owning for 30 years, that feels wrong to a lot of people.
It sounds backward, but think about it. No property tax, no maintenance, no surprise $15,000 roof repairs. You trade equity for predictable cash flow.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That brings us to lifestyle leakage. I love this term. It sounds like a plumbing problem, but it's a wallet problem.
It is the death by 1,000 subscriptions. The streaming services, the meal kits, the daily convenience costs. The guide focuses on the compound negative effect. Saving $20 a day doesn't sound like much, but that's over $7,000 a year.
That's a fully funded Roth IRA, just from cutting the fluff.
Exactly. The guide suggests a repair versus replace mentality. We live in a disposable culture, but learning to fix things or buying quality that lasts 20 years instead of 2 is a key retirement skill. It's going back to that Gen X scrappiness.
We fix our own cassette tapes with a pencil. We can definitely fix a toaster.
Precisely.
Let's get into the weeds a bit with Section 6, Advanced Tax Strategy. This is for the people who want to keep what they save. We talked about having different buckets, but how do we actually use them? The guide talks about Roth conversions.
This is the tax valley strategy.
Visualize that for me.
Okay. Imagine a graph of your income. It's high in your 50s. That's your peak. Then you retire at, say, 62. Your wages stop. But you haven't claimed Social Security yet because you're waiting for 70, and you haven't hit R&Ds yet.
So your taxable income just drops off a cliff. You are in a valley.
Exactly. You might be in the lowest tax bracket of your entire life. That is the perfect time to take money from your traditional IRA, the pre-tax one, and convert it to a Roth. You pay taxes on the conversion, but you pay them at that rock bottom rate.
So you voluntarily pay tax now to avoid paying higher tax later?
Yes. Because if you wait, you eventually hit age 73.
The RMD age.
Required minimum distributions.
Yeah.
At 73, the government forces you to start taking money out of your pre-tax accounts because they want their tax revenue. If you have a huge traditional IRA, those RMDs can be massive. They can spike your tax bill, push you into a high bracket, and you have no choice.
So the Roth conversion strategy drains that tank early, on your own terms, while taxes are cheap.
Correct. The ultimate goal, as the guide states, is the zero tax goal. Structuring your withdrawal so that in some years, your federal tax liability is actually zero.
That sounds like magic.
It's just math. But you have to plan for it during that valley window. Oh, and don't forget, the standard deduction is higher for seniors. Once you hit 65, that simplifies taxes and shields even more income.
Now, retirement isn't just about spreadsheets. The guide talks about the second act. It says retirement doesn't mean stopping. It means pivoting.
This connects back to the red zone urgency. If you haven't saved enough, working longer is the single most powerful lever you can pull. But the guide reframes it. It's not about drudgery. It's not about being a greeter at a superstore if you hate that. It's about purpose.
It lists 15 ideas for Gen X second acts. What stood out to you?
The diversity. It lists professional roles like consultant or bookkeeper or life coach, using the skills you already have but on a fractional basis, but also active or service roles, dog walking, pet sitting, handyman.
Kind of monetizing your hobbies.
Exactly. And business roles. Being an Airbnb host, selling e-commerce on Etsy, owning a food truck. The idea is to generate just enough income.
Just enough for what?
Just enough to cover your daily living expenses so you don't have to touch your portfolio.
So if I need $4,000 a month to live and I can make that walking dogs and doing some consulting, my $500,000 savings can just sit there and grow.
Exactly. If you can let your portfolio grow untouched from age 65 to 70, it might double. That second act buys you the time for compound interest to do the heavy lifting. Plus, you combine that with delayed Social Security and you maximize your financial power.
And there are health benefits too, right?
Huge health benefits.
Yeah.
People who keep working on their own terms tend to maintain social connections and live longer, happier lives.
Okay, we are in the home stretch here. Section 7, estate planning. The legacy. This is the stuff nobody wants to think about, but we absolutely have to.
It is the final act of responsibility. The guide is very clear on this. A will is not enough.
Wait, I thought a will was the gold standard.
A will is essentially just a set of instructions for a judge. It guarantees you go to probate court.
And we don't want probate court.
No. Probate is public, it's expensive, and it takes months. It's basically a lawsuit you file against yourself to prove who owns your stuff. The guide strongly recommends a revocable family trust.
How is a trust different?
A trust is a private contract. When you die, the assets in the trust pass instantly to your heirs. No court, no judge, no fees, no public record. It is seamless. You also maintain full control of it while you are alive.
That seems entirely worth the setup cost. It also mentions a medical power of attorney.
Yes, designating someone to make health decisions if you are incapacitated. That is crucial, so your family isn't fighting over what to do.
What about the business succession and digital assets plan? That sounds very 2026.
This is huge, especially for Gen X business owners. If you can't run your company, who stepped in? You need an interim manager plan. And on the personal side, think about your life. It's all online. Bank accounts, crypto, photos, email. If you die tomorrow, does your spouse know the password to your phone?
Probably not.
Then they might be locked out of your entire financial life. The guide suggests using a password manager and designating a digital executor, someone who has the master key.
Imagine saying, sorry, we can't inherit the family business because we don't know the password to the GoDaddy account.
It happens every day. Do not let your legacy be lost because of two-factor authentication.
All right, we have covered a massive amount of ground today. We've gone from the scary savings gap to the triple tax hacks, the Social Security timing trap, the sandwich generation squeeze, and the second act.
It is a comprehensive roadmap. It's a lot to digest.
So let's simplify it for everyone listening. Let's wrap this up with the action plan recap. If a listener is sitting there thinking, okay, I'm 52, I'm overwhelmed, just tell me what to do first, what does the guide say?
Step 1, take a financial snapshot. Calculate your net worth today. Assets minus debts. You cannot map a route if you don't know where you are starting. You have to look the monster in the face.
Step 2.
Max out contributions. Turn on the catch-up contributions at work tomorrow. If you can't do the full amount, increase it by 1% every month until it hurts.
Step 3.
Kill the high-interest debt. It is an anchor dragging you down. Be ruthless about it.
Step 4.
Have the talk. The uncomfortable lunch with your parents and the financial independence talk with your kids. Clear the decks of dependency.
And finally, I want to leave you, the listeners, with a provocative thought from the very end of the guide. It challenges the whole concept of retirement itself.
It really does. We tend to view retirement as a finish line. You cross it and you stop. The source suggests that retirement is an outdated industrial age concept. Instead of thinking about the end of work, ask yourself this. If you didn't have to work for money, what work would you choose to do?
That is the second act right there.
That is the key. Finding that answer might not just be about happiness. It might be the financial bridge that gets you from where you are now to a secure future. It turns the problem of needing money into a solution of finding purpose.
And on that note, we hope this deep dive has moved you a little further away from anxiety and a little closer to action. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for listening. It's my hope that you've learned something interesting here. You know, I think that the successful retirement involves the skill. That means that you learn retirement skills, just like you learn your own career. When you went to college, you dug deep, you became an expert. You need to become an expert on retirement. There are too many facets just to be left alone here. If you continue to read and ask questions and learn and learn and learn, you definitely become the master of your own destiny when it comes to retirement and financial security in the future. Become an expert. Now, we have a lot of resources on RetireCoast.com and a lot of podcasts that you can listen to become truly an expert. So we hope that you come back. Please leave comments on RetireCoast.com or actually in the show notes here. And we appreciate the fact that you are considering spending some time with RetireCoast.com on the website and also on our podcast. So please return.